Pastors, bishops and reverends from various Christian denominations swapped pulpits for the streets of Pretoria yesterday. The churches claim that there is political interference and that through the CRL Rights Commission, the South African government is trying to regulate religion. For more, we are joined by Reverend Kenneth Meshoe, the leader of ACDP. Rev Meshoe, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening on the late edition. So we saw the march taking place yesterday of the various churches marching against Section 22. Perhaps just tell us the stance of ACDP. How do you believe Section 22 impacts religious freedom and the role of the churches in the South African society?
Good evening, and thank you very much for having me on your program. The CRL Commission is busy with something that in their report that they submitted to Parliament was rejected. They made recommendations. And among those recommendations is that the church must be regulated, and government does not want to regulate the church, particularly if you look at the mandate of the CRL Commission. They went ahead and have appointed this Section 22 committee. Nobody knows how they did it. The process was not transparent at all. It looks like it is the chairperson on her own, alone, who appointed 22 men to serve on that committee without a single woman. And obviously, in a country that is trying to balance numbers of men and women in whatever government structure and committee, Metoko Kaluva has failed to do what government is trying to do. I wonder what gender equality thinks about this Section 22. This Section 22 that should be moving from province to province, consulting, they're told, is something that is unacceptable, particularly because the problems that the CR Commission has raised over the years related to churches that associate themselves with charismatic churches or Pentecostal churches. And when you look at that Section 22, you look at the number of men that are there, those 22, the majority of them will not understand what the charismatics will say. They will not understand it. And if you want to solve a problem, let it be dealt with by people who understand the language that is being used.
Right. So Rev Meshoe, sorry to come in there, Rev. I just want to get a few clarities there. I mean, you mentioned that a report that was submitted to Parliament had been rejected, and this, you say, is in the spirit of regulating churches. The chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission, Metoko, as you rightly say, mentioned that the spirit of this is not to regulate churches, but rather to have priests, reverends and pastors registered so that everyone accounts to one body and be recognized, especially because of how congregants have been disadvantaged in the name of faith. Do you believe that is not the intention of Section 22?
It is definitely not. When a person abuses others, whether that person is in the church or outside the church, we have laws in this country that govern anything that has to do with human rights abuses. Why should Metoko Kaluva try to solve a problem by taking a blanket approach, using one brush to paint everybody? I must tell you that the charismatics that she complained about do not agree with what has happened. I fall under that category myself. And I'm one of those who said, Omotoso must be arrested, Omotoso must be jailed for the abuses he has caused and committed. And when he was released, when he was not found guilty, I'm one of those who said the government must appeal the sentencing, the acquittal of Timothy Omotoso. Now, Timothy Omotoso's conduct was condemned by a number of church leaders. So now, for the chairperson of the CRL to say, to solve the problem here, Omotoso and those who fed people grass, let us put all these ministers, regardless of which church they belong to, under the same blanket. That is not going to happen. Under the same category or under the same category, that is not going to happen because there are differences of worship and of belief. The Constitution guarantees every South African the right to believe. When you look at the ZCC Lekhanyan, and you look at how they operate compared to charismatics, totally different. We will not have time to dance in the streets as they do. We won't have time for that. We spend time preaching and teaching the word. They don't do that. So she is going to cause confusion, and before that confusion confuses South Africans and cause people to be confrontational. This must be stopped in its tracks. It's wrong what they are trying to do. So when you look at Shembe Group, for example, Shembe Group, if you say charismatics and the Shembe organization or Shembe Church must come under the same umbrella, are we going to be expected to remove shoes when we meet? Are our ladies with pantyhoses going to be expected to remove shoes and walk? I mean, it is not practical. What she's trying to do is wrong. People who must be consulted. I can mention 3 churches that are one in existence.
Reverend Kenneth Meshoe is not such a good one. Him, of course, speaking to us about that march that took place yesterday to Pretoria, where various churches were marching against the Section 22 that has been developed to look into, particularly, as they say, charismatic churches, and also calling for the removal and the disbandment of this commission, the removal, of course, of the CRL Rights Commission chairperson, Ms. Togo Mkhwanazi Qaluva.